Hi, I'm Kerry Lester, and you are listening to TV Confidential.
January 8, 1966, the final episode of Shindig, which I don't remember that event.
Well, we've talked about Shindig.
Yeah, we talked about Shindig and Hullabaloo, and you had those shows.
It was network TV's attempt to be relevant and tap into rock and roll and the counterculture.
The counterculture, taking a certain lead from...
Well, it was the operative word is attempt.
Attempt, yeah, I think that's a good word.
What you just said, corny.
Yes, yeah.
So it was that attempt, but there was
homogenized.
Well, no, because you would have someone like, and again, nothing against Frankie Avalon, but you would have someone, a clean cut looking host, who would host the show, who looked more mainstream, but it was what network executives at the time saw as an acceptable countercultural youth image who could pull this off. And
something that mom and dad would allow in the house.
Exactly.
You keep in mind that, Dick Clark was going full throttle with American Bandstand, and he was successful in being that conduit, I think, to the parents of the kids enjoying this music.
But for me, Dick Clark and American Bandstand was on an entirely different level. Everything else seemed to be a pale imitation of American Bandstand. They got it right.
Everyone else
failed.
Well, Hootenanny, Hullabaloo, Shindig. I mean, I think the format that Dick Clark and Don Cornelius did also, they were in charge. They were in their broadcast booth. They had that. I think when it was kind of like a
Don Cornelius, who did Soul Train for first run syndication.
Yes, a very good point.
Yeah,
when you're having a bunch of people spontaneously dancing, some very well choreographed dances, it didn't have the same. I don't think the way that they put it together, it didn't have the same impact.
Well, it's the difference between now again, when you do something on first run syndication, you have no control when it's going to air unless you've got it specifically written in your contract that it must air between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. or 5 and 8 p.m. But like Soul Train, some markets would air it at 3 in the afternoon. Some would air it at night. Channel 44 in San Francisco for years aired it at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. So,
but out here we saw it early afternoon, late morning.
Yeah,
and Cincinnati was right after American Bandstand.
Okay, so it would air at different times of the day, but at the same time you probably had more control over the content, when you didn't have to answer to network as broadcast network standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
that's what I would say.
A rein on it.
Yeah.
And it was, and Bandstand, I think, was already a staple, but these other ones, because for whatever reason, one band would be acceptable and the next wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to previous conversations. There is that unknown, and get paranoid over that unknown. January 9th, 1996, the first episode of Third Rock from the Sun.
With John Lithgow and Jane Curtin.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Whatever happened to that guy?
He's been like the king of social media.
Yeah, and he just had that The Walk, the movie about Philippe Petit, who did The Walk between the two towers of the World Trade Center. You need to see that in 3D. Robert Zemeckis did a wonderful job with that, but it's he was the kid on Third Rock from the Sun, and Kristen Johnson, very, very funny, who did a show for TV Land more recently, The X's.
Yeah, with Wayne Knight from Seinfeld.
Yeah, and French Stewart.
Yes,
who married a friend of ours, Vanessa. Well, now she's Vanessa Stewart, who was touring and got a lot of awards for her her show about Louis Prima and Keely Smith, and Lewis and Keely live in Las Vegas. And the two of them married. They have a beautiful girl.
Please no squeeze of the bananas.
Yeah, I don't know if they did that one, but Old Black Magic.
They didn't?
No, I don't think they did that one. But the Old Black Magic number.
Old Black Magic. Those are the standards. But
yeah, but her interpretation of Keely Smith in that is spot on. I saw the show a couple of times. The first time I saw it with a much older audience, people who probably did see them live in Vegas, and you can sense the shock from the audience, how well she emulated Keely Smith. There was a collective, oh my God, that was going on in the audience when we saw that.
Growing up, my parents had this great old collection of old 33 LP albums, and some of them were, like the soundtrack of Brigadoon or whatever. But there was an album, Louis Prima Digs Keely Smith. And I guess because I got accustomed to them playing it often, I would occasionally just play it myself. And it's got Old Black Magic, and it's got a lot of the standards, but my favorite song is Please No Squeeze the Bananas.
French Stewart was in the retread of WKRP in Cincinnati?
He was also Bob in God, the Devil, and Bob.
Yes, which...
With Alan Rakins as the Devil and James Garner as God.
Yeah, which had a nice little run on Comedy Central after. Again, one of those, it was a little ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And
but it's a nice footnote because it was the first time James Garner had ever done anything for animated. Any sort of animated.
He did more
series.
from that.
He did more after that, yeah.
He definitely did.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay Area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson, thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
I do want to give a quick mention to this because I think it's an important footnote. January 12th, 1926, the original Amos and Andy debuted on Chicago radio.
1926.
So this was a two-man comedy series. Sam and Henry debuts on Chicago's WGN station 2 years later, changing the names to Amos and Andy, and the show became one of the most popular radio programs in American history. So this is, the radio version. So you also have to look at, this is one of the successful shows that went from radio to television.
I didn't know it went back that far.
I didn't know it went back that far.
Yeah, that's the part that kind of stuns me because, it is, I would say, important in the history of CBS. Yes. And I was just watching a YouTube video of a broadcast where they were celebrating the opening of Television City in Hollywood. I mean, how many times did we grow up hearing that before? All in the Family,
and
Maude,
all the
Burnett Show. Yep. Yeah, and it was, the opening, and the opening does feature Amos and Andy. They're the ones who open the show.
Huh.
Because they're on an airplane flying to L.A.
Uh-huh.
So can you imagine you're seeing Amos and Andy on an airplane. They're looking out the window, and there's aerial shots of Television City. There is a bit with the I Love Lucy cast, but it primarily centers around Jack Benny producing this TV special. But there's a lot of talented people on this variety thing. But I think what was really worth mentioning is to see Amos and Andy opening the show, and Amos and Andy part of like the cast grouping at the end of the show, because there's like a big class picture of everyone. When the show's over, they're all exhausted. They're sitting on steps. Jack Benny's counting the money. But there's a shot, and they're very prominent there. So they meant a lot to the network at that time. But yeah, to go back.
Again, I second Donna's thought. I didn't realize they went back as far as 90 years.
But also keep in mind that originally this was two white actors doing it, and then they performed in blackface live. So yeah, we're going way back.
Right. It was when it moved to television. That's when they cast two African American actors.
Yeah, and that was very. At that time. I mean, that's something I wanted to just make a footnote on, the fact that the broadcast history goes all the way back there. That is just amazing, actually, how long that is, and it's stuff that still comes up in conversations.
You're going to enjoy Tony Figueroa's standalone podcast this week. in TV history, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find audio. We'll be back with more TV Confidential right after this.
If you're a diabetic, we have great news. You can end the painful finger sticks with a new CGM. Plus, they may be covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. If you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you may qualify. Call US Med now to learn more.
800-432-8150. 800-432-8150. 800-432-8150. That's 800-432-8150.